Welcome back to the podcast, What Autism Feels Like. If you are new to the channel, my name is Ha Thomas. I am a behavior analyst. I work with families with special needs, and I also interview individuals with special needs and those who work with them. We discuss several topics, and the purpose is to gain understanding to better support people, especially children with special needs or children who struggle behaviorally. And I'm so excited about our today's conversation. This one has been a long time coming. And if you are a parent still struggling with constant emotional dysregulation, aggression, impulsivity, meltdowns, and whatnot, we all know, and I think that we all agree, that behaviors do not exist in a vacuum. There are so many variables in the environment that can directly or indirectly affect how a child feels and how they behave. And so today we are very lucky that we are joined by my friend here, Vindeira. She is a holistic registered nurse and also a nutrition and wellness expert. And she also owns Bio Individual Health and Wellness. She is going to help us understand the connection between nutrition and the body and how we can support our children the best way and the most compassionate way we can. And nutrition, of all the puzzle pieces, nutrition is so important. I'm so excited because I want to learn how we understand what's happening inside our children's body when their behaviors scream so loud. So thank you, my friend Vindeira, for spending time with us today. Before we dive in, I want the audience to get to know you. So can you share a little bit about how you started your work in this line of profession?
Thank you, Ha, for this, for letting me join you today. Yes, so when I first started learning about nutrition and behavior, it was back in 2019 with my own child, and that's when I realized something was wrong. Something was definitely going on. He was 4, turning 5, and my husband wanted to wait till he was outgrowing. Maybe it was just like childhood tantrums and stuff like that. And so I'm like, okay, we'll just wait and see what happens. But then, in August, it was just that was my breaking point. I think it was our breaking point. And I started going online, just trying to figure out like what can I do because I have an LPN license, right? So I'm still a nurse, but I'm not a registered nurse, and I stayed at home with my kids, taking care of them for a while. So I did some research and I learned that food could be an issue. And I'm just like, wow, that's so crazy. Cause, I cooked at home all the time. And, you do your best as your, stay at home mom. And when I started reading the ingredient labels, I'm like, okay, so we need to make some changes. But some of the things that stood out to me was that in these groups, they were like, you need to cut out gluten or dairy or corn. And so no one really had the full answer. There was just like little pieces of the puzzle. And so I'm like, you know what? Having the nursing background, the knowledge, and just saying, okay, I know the next step if I go to the doctor, it's going to be medications. And I'm like, oh, I want to kind of hold off on that. So let me just see what I can do at home. So we, that was August. I made a plan and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this. So went to the store, figured out what things we could substitute. And by September, we made some changes and I took out gluten and dairy. And that week was like mind blowing. It was such a different kid. And he just was not having any meltdowns. He was more rational. And that's when I'm like, okay, well, what else is there that can be going on? I did end up meeting with a regular pediatrician, and that was in October, actually. So I already made these food changes, saw the things that were happening. Came October, I met with her and I told her, "Oh, I think he has a dairy allergy. He's
Mhm.
having some behavioral issues." And she told me that how it was my parenting that was a problem, that me and my husband needed to be on the same page. And I'm like, "Okay." So I just left and never went back over there because one, I saw it in my proof that it was an allergy, perhaps. And I asked her for the allergy testing and she said no. So she's already refusing to give me the testing and then told me it was my parenting. And this is my second born. So I already have another child who's completely different. So, that was in October. So now he's already 5. And then now December, I decided to meet with an immunologist. And that's when we did all the testing. We did skin prick testing and all the allergy blood work. And he came back with everything under the sun. He was allergic to so many things:
Wow.
gluten, corn, dairy, eggs, even the trees outside, like everything. And it was just so shocking. So, he really was allergic to things. And that is when I realized, like, okay. So I asked the immunologist that day, and I'm like, now that we have the testing, what are we supposed to eat? And he looked at me and he's so wonderful, but he's like, I don't know. So I'm like, okay, you told me to take out everything that we eat, everything that we know, and there was nothing left for us to eat basically. So that was really sad. I'm like, how long do we live this elimination diet lifestyle for? So there was no answers. And that's when I started digging more deeper. And then I went to work for a little bit. And, this one lady, she's like, we want you as a nurse. Go become a registered nurse. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I went back to school, got my RN license, and I'm like, you know what? I love functional medicine. This is such a different field, learning how kids and the behaviors and families and how it really helps because making those changes for my kids, months later, I saw it improved my health as well. So that's where I'm like, okay, I'm going to start this entire by individual health and wellness, and this is where it is.
Wow, what a story. To be honest, how can that doctor tell you that this is your parenting style? They didn't even know what it's like. They don't know your family dynamics. They don't really know how you interact with your kids. That is wild.
Yeah, she was I remember her talking about her own experience with her own daughter who was a teenager, and, it's like, sometimes you hold back when you tell the practitioner what's going on because you don't know what their reaction's gonna be, and the last thing you want is, like, your child being taken away from you, right? But, like, you know what the struggles are, and, they don't know what it's like to wake up every single day and walk on eggshells. They don't know what your child's been they don't ask you all these questions either in a conventional, atmosphere. So
Yeah.
maybe she was to ask me, "Hey, well, how is he sleeping? How is he pooping?" There would have been a different storyline.
Good for you for doing your own research and making your own decision. I'm very proud of you for doing
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, so for those who are very new to this term biological health, right? Can you help us define what that means?
Yeah. So with by individual health, so by individual means that you're unique and nutrition, lifestyle, genetics, it all impacts you based on your story. So we could all, let's say we have a disease process. We could all, be on that same page, but how we got there is different. So for an autoimmune, if I, one person A has the same autoimmune as person B,
Hmm.
autumn A may have had a stressful childhood. And then that stress, that cortisol, everything just exemplifies another in autoimmunes, where somebody else may have just had food. Maybe they or a virus that could have impacted their cells. And now they both have an autoimmune disease process. So we have to really look backwards and kind of see like where did your story start? How was childbirth? Were you breastfed? Were you formula fed? Were you, you know, sometimes different kinds of birth can be very stressful. And although they say babies don't remember anything, my experience is that I think that they do remember a lot. That
Right.
memory is there. Yeah. So for individuals, just really looking at yourself and knowing what your story is.
Yeah, I think I can understand it. I feel like nowadays, and you can tell me how you feel about it, but in the medical field in general, it's a lot of one size fits all approach. And I can see that in behavioral work as well, where, the providers, they look at everybody the same. It's like, okay, you have this symptoms, you probably have this and this, right? But it lacked of the customization, the personalization approach for each client, for each patient. So yeah, I think that really identifying the root causes of the problem, which may take you a longer time to identify it, but once you find it, you know how to treat it completely.
Yeah. I like to say that it's really a journey because there is no, I haven't found it. I haven't found a cure. And I think everyone's always chasing the next cure, even with functional medicine and conventional medicine. We're always like, there's a new supplement, there's a new bacteria that's found. Oh, we got to treat this. But, that's what health is. It's very dynamic. And I think it's just a whole big journey and it's never going to stop because things that affect you now, it's going to change later on because we get, stressors are different, our food is different. So all these things can impact us.
Yeah, that's for sure. I feel like a lot of parents who a lot of them say that, well, I have tried every strategies and nothing really seemed to stick. I'm talking behaviorally. They have tried so many things. And yeah, I testify because I came into their homes. I saw that they are amazing parents. They have tried all sorts of reinforcement strategies and nothing really seemed to work. So it's kind of prompted me to really look into the child's nutrition and their diet and what they are eating and whatnot. And a lot of them have a very bad diet, but I'm not the one who tell them that, hey, I think that your diet or what your child is eating is problematic. Well, it's not my position to say that. But from your experience, how can you help a parent understand that their child's nutrition directly or somehow affects how their child behaves? Somehow it might affect their attention, their impulsivity, maybe their sleep, and maybe even aggression.
Yeah. So I love journaling, and that's something that I did. And, I didn't learn it back then in 2019. I didn't read like you should be journaling and all that. I had no idea. I just went into it blindly. And so I kept my little notebook and I'm just like, okay, day one, this is what we ate. And then it would be cookies, it would be rice and beans, it would be broccoli, it would be, he had a yogurt. And
Mhm.
then I'd write down like the symptoms. Like there was no time frame or nothing. It was just me jotting things down. And then write down his like, okay, he was pinching me, or he was like, just blowing raspberries constantly, or he wasn't able to remember information. That was a big one for me also early on was that he couldn't remember certain things learning and we homeschool. And he was still young, it was preschool. And then he would just multiple times a day, it's more than a tantrum, it was a meltdown, just things that he was normally rational about, he was just so irrational, just arguing, complaining, and really just fighting, and I just couldn't figure out why. And so, by writing that down, that simple notes made me realize, "Okay, something is going wrong." And then when I started doing the research and putting it together, like, "Oh, dairy can cause this, corn can cause this," and that's when I realized, "Okay, so I started making better journals, and I even have the product now, like, where I created my food journal because it's so important to track. And, you don't have to be overwhelmed by looking at it and doing everything at the same time, but just you writing it down is just such a big step because then you're acknowledging that something is going on, and maybe there could be a link. And when you have enough data, now you can see trends and patterns, and then you can start to identify what is the culprit.
Can I see your journal?
Yeah. So this is the title of it.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
you did mention a while ago that it's available on Amazon, right?
It is. I'll show you the inside. Like, these are things that I have you tracking. It's your food and your drink, your emotions. So if you're having behavior aches and pains, your poop is such an important thing, your urine, your physical activity and mindfulness, even hydration and sleep. All that stuff, it's really important information. So I try to make it really easy because it is something we should be tracking.
So, do you have your child track it or do you track it for your child?
So I track it like because he was small, he was 4 when we started it, and even still, it was just a little notebook, and it was just me writing it down. And so, when your brain is inflamed, when your body's inflamed, especially with a child, you know that you can't really talk to them. So I have to wait for after he was calmed down and in a better mood, and then I can say, "Hey, did you saw that like what happened earlier? We have to reflect and like, did you see what happened? Like normally you don't act like that. So, what happened? How are you feeling?" So I do try to find out like if he can identify what's going on. And as he got older, he's able to start telling me like, "Yeah, I did feel like that." He's like, "But I don't usually feel anything." He doesn't feel it. And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I noticed." So it's hard. I feel like sometimes like, I don't want to be like, am I putting things in his head? But while at the same time, I can see it. And like my husband, my other son can see it. And that's the big part. And like he does, it's masking a lot too when you he's such a great kid going out. He's so sweet and caring, he's fun, but when you get in from that outside, like that histamine, that dopamine, all that stuff, that big emotions, he doesn't know what to do with it. And so we've learned now, like when you come to the car and you're so excited and that playful time, that dopamine drops, let's do some 4-7-8 breathing, and then it usually helps us.
That's awesome. I can see a lot of benefits in using that journal. I feel like it's such a good skill for kids to have to be more aware of their body. Like in my line of work, I see that kids sometimes they are hungry, but they don't really know how they're feeling. Or if we even ask them like, "How are you feeling?" They say, "I don't know." Right? But I want kids or all of us to be aware of how our bodies feel because once we know how our body feels, we better identify like what is going on and find the answers for certain behaviors that we have. So yeah, it's not only tracking nutrition, tracking what we eat, right? But it's also to better understand how our body responds to certain things too. So I want to see, like, from your experience with your kids, what are some of the symptoms that let you identify, like, oh, this food is affecting, or maybe their gut health is affecting their behavioral struggles?
So the more like so signs where like the allergy shyness under the eyes, like usually it's like this reddish color, and looking at that, sometimes even bags under the eyes, and it's not just from a lack of sleep. It could be iron deficiency, sure, and it could be histamine. So you have to really identify the source of it. And we had done blood work and all that stuff with the functional medicine provider that we ended up seeing months later. So that was the other thing. So I saw the functional medicine practitioner. She did all this blood work and the same thing. What can I eat? There was nothing. She said, I don't know. Just remove foods. So that's why I'm like, okay, we need to have more support. But so for the kids, the allergy shyness were a big one, and, even the handwriting, it was so subtle, but you can see the difference. Like, he had chicken scratches. One day it'll be chicken scratches, and then a couple of weeks later, when things are calmed down, you'd see beautiful handwriting.
Mm.
So I learned about that also being part of it, and, those are times where I can see, like, the allergy shyness, that's the giveaway for me. Like, if I see it, I'm like, "Okay, we definitely do some self-regulation." And I tell him, like, "This is the day that we're gonna have to really focus on our routines, because if we start to play more video games or do something more like dopamine hit or just things that are not in routine, there will be a meltdown." And so there still are meltdowns, but it's not as severe
Mhm.
as it used to be. So we're still learning on things to navigate. Like histamine was a newer thing that we learned about. Like we did all the dietary changes, and then we started lacrosse. And within like 5 minutes, my husband saw like his mood just changed, and it was like all that pollen, all that stuff was just building in his body. And another sign was not sweating. So, he would be outside playing, but he wouldn't break a sweat. And I'm like, that's not normal. And he wasn't like having a fever or anything, like, he wasn't hot. So that's a problem. If you're outside, especially in Florida, and you're not sweating, that's a big sign of detoxification issues. So we
Mm.
have to look at that. And then we work on his poop. Looking at his poop, honestly, it wasn't formed. It wasn't number 3 or 4 on the Bristol poop chart, and that's another thing we have to ask our kids. I even had them print out a poop chart and keep it in their bathroom, like, "Hey," every day, I'm like, "How's your poop? What number is it on the chart?" And then they would tell me because it was really important, and so his poop wasn't even solidified, it wasn't even a solid form, which means that nutrients are just passing through. It's not even, like, absorbing. So here we are trying to eat our best, but it's not absorbing, so we really had to work on a lot of detoxification issues.
I see. Wow. Oh, well, thank you. Now I know that, okay, bags under eyes and no sweating. Thanks God I don't see that in my but I see that in my clients. Some of them have.
Yeah. And that's where it's so by individual because different kids will have different presentations. So sometimes some of my clients are like, "Oh, my child doesn't have those behavioral issues, but they have these other things." Well, yeah. So we're all gonna be different in how it presents. Even like for family wise, like I have different symptoms than my sisters do, even though we share the same genetics, but our lifestyles are different.
I would like us to be a little bit more practical. I would like you to walk me through 3 to 5 food items that seem to be pretty popular, that kids eat a lot, but maybe some of the ingredients might negatively affect their body.
So, the top one is gluten. I think everyone hates to hear that, but it is gluten. And, there's been studies that show that it can cause like hallucinations, depression, anxiety. It can cause mood swings. So being that how we know that it can affect our brain, then it also affects our gut because of the gut brain axis. So that's one of the things I do recommend that people do remove from their diet because of that. And sometimes, I've heard like, "Well, I don't feel any different." And that's okay. Healing is boring. It's not supposed to be like this magical thing. It's gonna be boring, but your body is recovering inside, even if you can't see it right away. I think we just love that, we need the effects right now. We need the cure, right? So gluten is the first one. Dairy is another. It is inflammatory. There are studies to show that are mixed. I think this is where we have to know how it affects us personally. And when you food journal, you'll know how dairy affects you. I mean, I've had some clients, even pediatric clients, the big thing with them was eczema, and that's because of dairy.
Mm.
So even with one, she was a toddler, like 2 years old, and just dairy just falling on her yogurt, falling on her skin would cause her to break out. So then you can imagine when she's eating it, what is it doing to the inside and to your gut? So she would constantly break out in hives. So we cut out dairy, and that was the main problem. So she could still have gluten, it seems so, but the dairy was a big part. And then for another child, just removing that cleared up his eczema as well. Sometimes we don't think skin issues are a gut issue, but it is related.
So gluten and dairy.
Mhm. And then we know food dyes was a big one that came out for like ADHD and whatnot. Food dyes and additives like MSG, all these things can cause, they cause brain inflammation. If we can't focus, it's causing some kind of neuroinflammation in our bodies and our minds. So those things I like to look at.
Yeah, food dyes is everywhere.
Yeah,
So
there's
that's
a lot of everything.
another question too. That's it. The three items. Do you have more to give us?
So from my experience and it's how you do your dietary change. So if you're tracking it, I know that corn caused aggression. So for me, I'm able to actually see for my own kid how foods affect them. So like gluten definitely caused like pain. Whenever he would eat food, he'd feel cold. He always complained for foot pain. And although nightshades can cause foot pain and body pain, specifically it was gluten causing that brain fog. And then dairy would cause the shifts in mood so rapidly. And not just because of not eating or hypoglycemia, it was just neuroinflammation. Corn was causing aggression. Even legumes cause aggression. Eggs caused nausea. So it was constant, like everyday eating. I feel nauseous. I feel nauseous. I can't eat. And then all of a sudden, removed all those things, and then we put them in one at a time, and you could see which symptom was related to which food. So that's what I like my patients to get to that point to see what it is. And so I usually work with the adult patients and they're able to see it, and then a little bit of the pediatric population. I think it's important. And some of the questions I get from the pediatric moms and dads are like, "Well, how do you find this information about your child?" And I'm just, "Well, just ask." Sometimes it's just as simple as just asking them, "Hey, how's your tummy today? How's your head feel today?" And they'll tell you. They may not understand how to say it, but you can also watch them and observe for signs and symptoms.
Hmm. For me, I love eggs.
Mhm.
I don't really eat dairy. My son consumes a lot of dairy products, and over the summer, because of his GI issues, we limited the dairy, and we did see a big improvement in terms of gut health. So I think that he does have some kind of dairy allergy.
And
But
there's a difference between allergies and sensitivities and intolerances. And, we may have a food sensitivity to dairy, not just an allergy, because allergies are it's like an immune response, whereas intolerances is like you're missing an enzyme. But it doesn't mean that it's not gonna cause an effect in our body. So that's why it's really important to track and see, like, how is it really causing like, what is it really causing in your body and in your child's body? And you could probably see that. So, yeah.
yeah, no, he didn't break out in hive or anything, but it got really bad that he would throw up after every meal, and we take him to do some testing with a functional doctor. I like to ask you a question. How can we find alternating items that can replace these items that can help parents not feel too overwhelming because this is a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of work. We spent countless hours at the grocery store reading labels, and that's gonna be the first thing that I recommend that everyone do. I had to prepare, and I tell everyone, you can't just jump into something because then you're not gonna succeed. You need to make a plan and then implement that plan. So if you know you wanna make dietary changes, so write down the ones that you wanna make, and then look up the alternatives. So if you're going to the store, let's say you wanna so gluten, that's, like, hard. We can't replace bread. I have not found a bread recipe. We've been doing this for, like, 6 years. So bread is a hard thing to replace, and sometimes you're just gonna have to accept that we can't have bread, but, like, there's pasta. So
Yeah.
Jovial is my favorite brand of brown rice and water pasta. That's all it is. It boils, it doesn't break down. It's really a good alternative. There's lots of crackers, like, Simple Mills makes these little crackers, and I used to make, like, little almond butter sandwiches with them with the little jam. That was, like, the Ritz crackers or whatever. So, like, you find alternatives, you get creative. There's certain brands, though, that there's so many brands nowadays compared to before. Like, even when I first started, 6 years later now, there's so many different brands, and then imagine, like, 20 years, now they even have even more. So, I recommend just going to the grocery store. Well, the first thing I recommend is making a what I can eat list. When you know what you can eat, yeah, it's in my book too. Like I have everything. Like it's my coaching in a book. But write down a what I can eat list And that is where you know, okay, chocolate chips. My kids love cookies. What can I do for chocolate chip cookies? Okay, looking at the store, there's a Simple Mills brand. There's Enjoy Life brand. So there actually are lots of alternatives that don't have, 100 ingredients. It only has like 5 or less, and you could pronounce them.
How about gluten-free bread?
So that one, I think they have more stuff added to it sometimes, and
Mm,
those additives could be the things that are causing more inflammation in your body too.
mm.
So there was one bread that I actually found, and I wanted to try it for a couple years, and we finally did try it. Well, I bought it, we ate it. No, it did not work with our guts whatsoever, and our moods were no. So I'm like, we're just done finding it. We can make our own little biscuits that we could try to, play around with, but it's just really replacing bread is like the hardest thing. And so sometimes
Yes,
people think that going gluten free,
we love bread.
yeah,
I tried to make gluten-free bread myself a long, long time ago, and it was really, really hard to make a good gluten-free bread. It came out hard, like cardboard for some reason. The bread that you tried, was it at least good?
it was okay. There was a little taste to it, an aftertaste. I mean, we toasted it on the cast iron skillet and put, palm oil, so we don't eat butter, so it was, like, another thing, and then jam, and then, but no, there was still an aftertaste to it. I'm gonna be honest with you, like, it literally, like, tore up my gut, and I'm like, even if it's gluten free, it had sorghum flour in it, millet flour, I'm just like, "No." And so, the other thing is, like, just because so those people who are diagnosed with celiac disease or if they have gluten sensitivity, we can't just replace our diet with all gluten-free products because then that causes more inflammation. That's what the biggest thing is. Don't just because you go gluten-free or dairy-free doesn't mean you just go and replace everything because you're not gonna feel better. We have to know what's the root cause, what else is it? We have to kind of look at what we're putting into our bodies.
I think I think that when you start out a new diet or you make a change, and baby steps is always the way to go, right? Because if you add too much stress and what you're doing is not sustainable, it's like it's a new lifestyle. It is something that you have to be committed to.
Yeah, 100%. I felt like and that's what I say, like, if you're I have clients all the time who come to me and who don't really commit, and that's okay because it is a lifestyle change, but for me, like, when they ask me, "Well, you're so strict," and it's like, I'm not strict because I want to be, it's because it was really, like, life or death, to be honest with you, and, like, my mood my whole me, I changed a lot in how I was thinking because of the dietary changes, and it's so crazy when it wasn't for me, it was for my son, and I always say, like, he saved my life. So even though I was working on his behavior, it really saved my life, and, like, I think it's just better for it. Like, I tell the kids, I tell everyone, I'm like, "I'm a grown adult. I could go ahead and eat pizza, I can eat dairy, I can eat all these different things, but I'm still living this lifestyle because I feel really good."
So, does your behavior change? And is that change similar to how you see in your kids and your husband?
Yeah, so it is a little bit different. When I eat certain foods, yeah, like if I eat dairy, I'm definitely more low mood. As a woman, PMDD, depression, all these things affect you even more harder. It's not just PMS. And, going when I was younger, I did talk to the doctor and they see a smiley person, they're like, "You can't be sick." And, it's like, it brought me back to my son, taking him to the pediatrician, and it's like, "Oh, no, he doesn't have that." So it's like you're constantly being gaslit, and no one's ever helping you find answers. So that's why I'm just like, I'm here to spread awareness and, like, you're not crazy. Things are going on in your body, and it could really be the food.
I think a big part of it is the food. And I don't really trust the food that we're eating these days. I feel like everything is filled with chemicals and toxins. Recently, we came back to Vietnam, and when we were there, we ate out every day. And oh my God, it felt such a difference because everything there organic. It just made our bodies feel very different.
Oh,
I feel like I never felt heavy there. But here,
wow.
for a meal, I feel like I'm crawling. Maybe I'm rolling.
I agree, yeah, so a lot of the things so we used to cook from home, and it's so different when I make the alternatives now. I do feel the difference. I don't feel as heavy and as overwhelmed. My body can finally function. So I'm like, it really does make a difference when you read the ingredient labels especially. You do feel the difference.
And
anything organic.
I see that you make a lot of food yourself, homemade food. They look good.
Yeah. Thank you. It definitely is a lot. We cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. So it definitely is a lifestyle change and it is hard. But, like, so my husband, he was very against it at the very beginning. He's like, food, no way. Like, food can't be the problem. It has to be something else. So it was really just me and the kids on this journey. And like everyone always says to me, they're like, oh, well, you have the support. Initially, it was really hard when you don't have any support from anyone. And talking to my family, my friends, they look at you like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "My child is normal. What's wrong with your child?" So I just realized, like, I can't talk to anyone about these issues that we're going through because they couldn't help me. They couldn't, experience it either with me. So when we looked at our dietary changes and then my husband started seeing it, that's when he started believing, like, "Okay, there is something wrong." And then, of course, the testing, like, I don't really the elimination diet and reintroduction is, like, the gold standard. But for someone like a husband like mine or just certain people, they wanna see tests, they wanna see data, then go ahead and do the tests and the data. But at the end of the day, you still have to do an elimination diet and reintroduction because we did our functional medicine testing, and that was, like, hundreds of dollars. We did the stool testing and the blood work and, fancy testing. And the nurse practitioner, she was like, "Oh, you can ignore these foods, gluten, dairy, corn, soy, but, oh, you can eat shellfish." Well, guess what we did? We went home, ate shellfish. It was the worst decision ever. My son, within hours, he was having meltdowns, he was angry, so that's another thing, and I'm like, I was short fused as well, so I can't eat shellfish. Even though I love it, I know that I can't have it because I will be more angry, and then my face breaks out. It wreaks havoc on my gut and my mind, so I'm like, "You know what? Just certain things we just eliminate completely."
Yes. But how could you know if you don't try, right? You just tried it out
Yeah.
time. Do you ever try one more time just to make sure that it's not
I do. So, when you are eating all of these foods, we've eaten everything for our entire lives, and you start feeling sick. You have symptoms of sickness, but you don't know what they're caused. So, when you start to lower the inflammation in your body by removing possible trigger foods, which are usually like the top 9 allergens, we removed all of those initially. And then, of course, the additives and stuff. But when you remove all that inflammation and your body can finally rest,
Mm.
that's when you reintroduce the food. So it takes a couple weeks to remove things, let your body calm down. You add the foods in one by one, and that's how I was able to determine, okay, eggs cause this caused that. So when we did the shellfish, we already were like a couple months in of our elimination diet, and um, she's like, "You can eat shellfish. It's on there. It says it's fine." Well, it's not fine because clearly those kind of tests don't test your reaction, like your mental health. So that's where I'm like, you have to still do it one by one. Very tedious. A couple of months.
I just assume that it's gonna take a long time, right?
But yeah, so we do like, we just introduced legumes again, and I don't think we're gonna keep it in our diet because it's not working out. Maybe kidney beans, I think is the least destructive, but, like, the black beans and, we tried another one. Oh, garbanzo beans. It just no. So, we tried shrimp again, like, for New Year's a couple years ago. Forget about it. We were all having, like, no. So we learn. We do try things again. I've never tried dairy and gluten after, like, we did do cheats, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, a couple years ago, and that's when it's a roller coaster ride. I tell everyone, it definitely is a roller coaster ride because you're gonna be like, "No, food doesn't cause that at all." And you're gonna try it, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, you know what? It does cause it. I'm not gonna eat it again." Months go by, you feel good. You're like, "You know what? Maybe just one, that's my threshold. Maybe just one little piece will be fine." Okay, no, maybe it doesn't. Or maybe you could have 2 slices of bread. Okay, that's my threshold. And that's the goal. Find out
Mhm.
how much you can eat or if you can't eat it at all.
Right. Gotcha. So I think one thing that parents struggles the most is to know what to look for. How do you recommend parents who are starting this journey, making all the changes? How can you help them not to overanalyze everything? Because everything could be the cause of the problem.
Yeah. So, working with someone is really helpful. But if you want to do it yourself, just you have to document everything. And it is hard, it is overwhelming. And I honestly, it took me years to get to the point where I am now. But initially, when I started, just removing the foods was enough to help me breathe, get up for fresh air. And then I started looking at other things. Like I knew about the histamine intolerance and MCAS and all those different things early on, but I wasn't mentally ready to tackle that. So then after we cleaned up our diet, I'm like, okay, what's next? Like, what else are we missing? What else can we improve on? And that's habit stacking, right? You're like, I feel great. What else can I do to make me feel better? And then whenever issues will come across, like we go a lot on field trips and we went to the museum, the courthouse, and it's an old place. Well, when we came back home, my son had a meltdown and I'm like, what was it? And sure enough, it was being in an old museum. That histamine, that mold exposure triggered him. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna have our detox tea. We're gonna do some breathing, some nervous system regulation. We tried different things just to see, and then I look it up. And I there's not one person that I can look up to, but everything I type in the computer is like functional medicine aspect. What is this? What can I do? Not just the conventional answers because they won't give me the answer. So I love looking up functional medicine. What can I do now? What's the protocol? But just don't, that's just do what you can at first. So if all you could do is just remove one food, that's totally fine. If all you could do is just hydrate, so your child is pooping every day, then that's fine too. Those are things we just have to do, so we can finally come up for fresh air because it is hard having a child with behavioral issues because you are constantly walking on eggshells. So it's a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's tough for a lot of parents. And I have to say that for parents who have to deal with constant behavioral struggles, nutrition is the last thing on their
Mhm.
list because, well, they want to get the behaviors down first. But it's almost like a vicious cycle. If you don't get the nutrition right, then behavior may not get better. You want to get the behavior down first, but if you don't tackle the nutrition, then we probably won't make a lot of progress. Yes. So that is very difficult. That makes sense that if parents can just remove one thing, try one thing at a time, that will be a lot less overwhelming.
One of the things I had my clients do was also write. It'll be a 5-day journal, and it's nothing. You're not doing anything. You're just writing down what's going on with your child. And that way it just takes like you're not there to like judge yourself or no one's judging you. You just have to write down what's going on and just so you can see the big picture. Because when you have that's like watching a camera, a video of you. And when you write it all down, you could see it all there. And then I also had my clients do a symptoms checklist. So, write down all your child's symptoms that you're seeing because we're gonna forget. When they start to get better, we're gonna forget that they had any of these issues. But it still does exist and it will come back or it may show up in a different form, so write down what's going on. So if your child's having meltdowns, their belly's hurting them, like anything, that way that's already done, put on the back burner. Now just focus on, okay, what are we doing right now? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are you pooping? That's it.
And it's actually a lot of things to write down, right?
It is. I know it is a lot. And I don't think there's any way to not make it so overwhelming other than just taking your time and tackling the one thing at a time if you could. But I felt like I was in fight or flight. I had to definitely get something done. I think when you reach that point I joined a lot of Facebook groups, and a lot of them were like ADHD, ODD, and when I started to read those stories, like, I actually had to, like, remove myself from the groups because they were so triggering reading the things, and I'm like I could see the older kids, and when the parents would talk about their older kids being destructive or whatever, I'm like, "I don't want that to happen to my kid," and it seems like if we don't get this inflammation down, this could very well be a pathway, and that's what scared me the most, and I'm like, "I have to make these changes right now because now I know."
And you are sharing this information, teaching people, helping people understand, raising awareness. So I think it's very important work.
Yeah. There are a lot of parents who say all these they have their kids that have these issues, and I know they don't want to see nutrition or they said that they've tried everything, and sometimes you could try everything, but there's a different way of doing things too. They may have not taken out the right foods or not right, but like specific foods. They might not have read the ingredient labels. They may have just removed something they thought because that was me. We ate canned red beans, and there's 2 kinds. There's one that has EDTA added to it, which is a chemical additive, versus one that just has beans and water. So you know what I mean? Like, those little changes are what we can make, and we don't know about it because we don't always turn the label around.
I see. How about traveling? Because you have a lot of, specific food that you only eat. So does traveling feel hard for you?
Yeah, so we didn't travel a lot. Actually, our first vacation in years was going on a Disney cruise, and I was so nervous for that because 'cause you're on a boat for 3 days. So we packed a lot of snacks, simple meals, like the crackers, we packed almond butter, we packed rice crackers, like, our suitcase was filled with a lot of stuff, and we also bring a lot of teas, like our nettle tea for histamine, we drank detox tea, we drank chamomile tea, we had our supplements like vitamin C, and, we went there and then, we knew it's not gonna be organic, and we usually eat most foods that are organic at home, and I'm like, "Okay, we're just gonna eat regular food, what we cook at home, and we'll see what happens," and actually was really good. So, wasn't the best food that we ate, like, in the morning. Every morning we had bacon, turkey bacon with potato, very fattening, but it worked, and then we had fruits. And then for lunch and dinner, it was very basic, and I even told the chef, like, they had all of our ingredients. That's why I would only go with Disney cruises because they were so good to us
Mhm.
and accommodating, but we only ate, like, chicken and salmon with vegetables and, like, I think it was potatoes, like french fries, and they said that they didn't have it with contaminations and all that stuff, so we were actually pretty good, and so that's the only reason why I would go back on a Disney cruise because of the fact that we didn't have meltdowns, like, I was so scared we were gonna have meltdowns, and we didn't have any of that. But, yeah, so traveling for that was easier. When we go on, like, you know, what do they call it, like, vacations in Florida itself, a staycation.
Like yeah.
Yeah, so we do staycations, we do travel with our own food, we make sure Whole Foods is nearby, we make sure all the restaurants have a kitchen. We traveled to New York recently in October. That one so that was a big one. We even went to Washington, DC, and our flight was delayed overnight, and
No.
that was gonna be the hardest thing. So, we only had, like, a limited amount of snacks with us. We ended up going to eat at a restaurant, and I asked them, like, I really did ask, and I still feel like it was contaminated. But we had chicken and salad, but we needed something because of that delay. So, the only thing I could say is, like, because we calmed down so much of the information, like, if we are exposed, we do all of our remedies to try and bring us back to, optimal health.
Gotcha. I
It gets
see.
easier. I promise, it does get easier.
Now thinking about it, I that makes sense because, you spend a lot of time just building your immune system back up. So your body is stronger and it can handle more things, I feel like. Does that make sense? Ma
Yeah, I think we could bounce back from it, and, when you start to feel the pain and you know what's causing it, then you're like, "Okay, I can just start doing the remedies," like, what you need to do because you're started living this lifestyle and this journey, so you kinda know, like, "Okay, these are the supplements I could pull out, this is what I need to work on."
Okay.
It gets
So
easier.
okay, got it. So when you try something new, what is the expectation of how long it will take to see the shift in behavior?
So, I think it could be a couple of days. For us, it was a couple of days just by removing gluten and dairy because it just causes so much inflammation. Like, when I gave my son we would go out, and I would give him a cheese stick and then a dairy cup yogurt. But I didn't realize that that's when he was pinching my skin, and that's when he was just couldn't sit down, that's when he couldn't remember things. Because I was always giving him that to eat as a snack, and, like, here we are, we took it away, and that was it. Like, there was no meltdowns day 1, and I was like, "Why are there no meltdowns?" So that itself starts to help, and then, a couple weeks later after moving the foods, I'm like, "Oh, how are you pooping?" "Oh, it's good, number 3 to 4." I'm like, "Oh, that's something that's new because you've always had, like, a mushy poop since you were born," and, like, it's so crazy when you start to see, like, wow, like, you actually are improving. It's just taking a little bit longer, but you see the effects of it. But within a couple of days, if you remove certain things and so when you're tracking something, so let's say you took out gluten, right? But you're still having pain. Well, what did you eat within those past 5 days, right? Sometimes food lasts in your systems for 5 days. And I'm like, well, if you had nightshades, did that cause your arm pain, your leg pain? Did that cause that? And then sometimes usually the answer is yes. Oh, I had tomatoes or I had pasta sauce and that's what caused. So that there could be other things you find out on your journey.
Okay. So let's say you remove the cheese stick. There's no cheese snack anymore. What did you use to replace that? What were the alternatives?
Yeah, so for cheese, I didn't find anything else. We did try like those other brands, but no, it just at the end of the day when turned over the label and read it, I'm like, there's like all these other substitute ingredients. It's just more harm. We're not going to bother with it. For yogurt though, we use coconut yogurt instead, and for that was pretty good.
My client, they replace the regular milk with flax milk and hemp milk. What
Oh,
is your take on that?
whatever works for your child because it is by individual. So like they're doing well with it, then that's fine too. 'Cause, we all just have to try different things. All of our bodies are so different, our cultures, our genetics, so I'm not one to say, like, "You shouldn't eat that." Let's just see how you feel, and if you actually feel like it's working and it's helping you, then keep it in.
So for you, for instance, what kind of milk are you consuming now?
So, we did try oat milk, which we ended up just taking out because of the xanthan gum inside of it. I'm like, "We don't need to add these things in." And then we use almond milk time to time, but honestly, we just don't drink milk. You get calcium from eating your vegetables, and then also from, we drink orange juice, but not fortified or anything like that, but for calcium, it's more eat your foods and you'll get it too.
So just out of curiosity, what do you guys eat these days?
Everything. So we eat like if we make tortillas, right? We eat a lot of tortillas like recently. It's cassava tortillas or even plantain. That's one I just made, plantain tortillas. What else do we make? We make rice, we make Thai noodles. It's made with rice flour. So we use Thai noodles, that's our chow mein. So being Trinidadian, we eat certain foods still. Everything's just an alternative. So cassava tortilla or plantain tortilla, that's our roti, and we'll eat that with curry chicken. It was just we just made little changes, like for curry chicken, my mom uses soy sauce. Well, we don't use soy sauce anymore, so we use coconut aminos. And then it's really just
What's wrong with soy sauce?
well, soy, so we have allergies to soy or sensitivities to soy, so we can't have that.
Okay. I ate soy products for a long, long time. It worked for me for a long time, but recently I don't think that I'm good with soy products anymore. Whenever I eat tofu, I started to get bloaty and gassy. So I feel like maybe my body has changed and that could happen, right? Like after a few years as you age, your body change and it might react differently to different kind of food.
Yes,
So yeah,
absolutely.
I remove soy, but I'm still using soy sauce though.
Well, if you do fine with it because that's the other thing. Maybe you do fine with different, like, sources, like soy sauce instead of eating tofu. So maybe someone does better with, like so if I eat whole tomatoes, like I may pico de gallo, well, that could cause back pain because of the nightshade, so I don't eat that, but I do well with pasta sauce. So
Mm,
different forms and then also different kinds. We use only yellow gold potatoes, and my son especially, like, he usually has so much pain. Like, he used to wake up with night terrors because of all the inflammation in his body, but one of the foods was the nightshades causing pain. So when we took out the potatoes, russet, and then we replace it with organic yellow gold, he can consume that just fine. But if we were to introduce russet or any other brand, he does have pain. So it's like, yeah. And us too. Like I feel it and my husband feels it also. So that's why it's like yellow gold all the way.
okay. Well, I have to look into it too. I eat tomatoes. I
Mhm.
never really noticed whether I have pain or not, but now I'm more aware.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
all it is, being aware. And you may not have any pain. Not to say that everyone who eats it will have pain because your genetics are different or your lifestyle and your environment is different. But it's really interesting. Like, the other day, I was talking to my parents, and my mom was like, "Oh, my dad is complaining of arm pain. His arm is hurting him a lot." I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Well, did you have eggplant?" 'Cause I know they eat it a lot. And she's like, "Yes, he did." And she was like, "Oh my god." So they took it out, and she's like, "He hasn't had arm pain ever since."
Oh,
And then she made it again for him because he was craving it, and then he had arm pain again. So it was really funny. I mean, it's funny to me.
wow. I'm glad she figured it out. That's amazing.
Yeah. But she was so shocked when I said, I'm like, "Well, did you eat a nightshade? Did you eat, eggplant specifically?" And she's like, "How did you know?" Oh, I'm not a magic I'm not a fortune teller.
It's all silent.
Yeah.
So this is a big question. Is there anything that you wish parents would stop blaming themselves for?
So that one's hard. So, we wanna blame ourselves for everything that goes wrong with our children, but what you don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you start to come aware and you start making changes, you have to learn to forgive yourself because then that stress is going to eat you up. It definitely ate me up and it wasn't beneficial. It's not benefiting anybody because you're just in your own mood, your own thoughts, and you're preventing yourself from healing as well as your child. So forgive yourself and just move on. We have to, but otherwise that's it. So just tell yourself to forgive yourself. You didn't know what you didn't know. Now you know, you're aware, and you're making changes, and that's what matters.
Yes. I think the most important part is that in order to forgive yourself, you're going to need to make a change. It doesn't really matter what kind of change it is. It might be small, right? But it has to be something different than yesterday.
Yeah, we can't keep doing the same thing, expect a different response.
Exactly. And parents carry so much too. This kind of conversation is so important. So I saw
Mm,
that you are offering some bio individual classes for teenagers, right? This is wonderful because it teaches kids from the very early age the skill of taking care of themselves and being aware of their body. So, what excites you the most about integrating your knowledge into working with kids and families?
excited because, I think children, they can tell you so many things that's wrong with them or, like, what's good with them. They're pretty honest with things. Um, I found that, talking to your children a lot early on can help them to learn to they explain their vocabulary, but they're able to tell you what's going on in their bodies. We just have to learn to listen. Like my kid would always tell me, like, if he has itchy ears or, like, things are crawling, those are signs, and I'm just like, "Oh, I used to have the same thing when I was growing I used to always hear buzzing." Now I'm like, "Oh, guess what? I probably had a dairy allergy too," which is I don't have dairy, I don't eat dairy anymore, but dairy did cause issues with me, and no one ever said, "Hey, you have an allergy." So I thought it was funny when I read that, and I'm like but I passed it off on my son. I'm like, "Oh, you're fine, don't worry, you're just something else." And then in hindsight, I'm like, "Oh, that was a sign he was telling me something was going on, and I didn't listen to it." So they usually tell you things, but they don't know how to verbalize, like, buzzing or anything like that. They're just like, "Oh, I feel things crawling on my skin," or "I feel things," you're just like, "Oh, it's fine. It's just a bug or whatever." But no, really listen to them. It's really interesting what they can tell you. But I'm so excited to bring the class to teenagers. I am working on one for the little ones. I don't really know how it's gonna go, so we'll have to see. I think it's more keeping their attention, and so, but I'm excited to teach the teenagers because I know they do have a lot of health issues. I feel like a lot of my health issues actually started in my teenage years, and I feel like if I was to kind of put answers to it, then it would have helped me. So I just wanna do the same thing.
Yes, this is a very helpful class. I'm so glad that you are offering this class. Okay, are there anything else that you would like to share with families? What would be the one most important things that you think parents should hear?
You can do it. Don't doubt yourself. If you are your own cheerleader, that's okay because you're gonna be able to do it. Do research. It can be overwhelming, and if you do feel overwhelmed, take a step back. It's okay to take a breather for yourself because your big things are coming ahead for you. So it's okay to take a step back and just be your own cheerleader.
Yes, and this journey doesn't have to feel lonely, right? There are people like you, and you are offering this kind of service. You are coaching people, bringing awareness and knowledge to people. So if you feel like you are not very confident, you feel lonely, find a coach, somebody who
Yeah,
help you.
I do recommend that. It is hard. I know people like, they reach out, they don't wanna I think it's a commitment, but, it's okay to just inquire. Even just to learn a little bit of something new, that's okay to ask questions. Even asking your provider questions, if they don't know the answer, that's okay. Just keep looking for the answers, okay? It has to be somewhere. We can't just don't give up. That's a big thing. Like, don't give up, okay? There's an end, but it's a journey.
I think so. Ask questions and also initiate a conversation. I learned a lot from just a conversation. Okay, and to wrap this up, what support do you currently offer families and kids?
So right now I offer the Outschool course for teenagers, and I have a self-paced Nourish and Thrive clean eating program. And this one, I think it's like I love it because I think it's the health class that no one got, but we all need. And so it goes over things that we talked about, like how to read an ingredient label. It talks about the food sensitivities, allergies, talks about sleep, talks about a lot of different things that I think that we all need to kind of just we need to learn it and understand it, and then it's self-paced, so you can do it at your own pace, you don't have to worry about it, complete it as you need to, and then that's it. I don't do one-to-one coaching anymore just because I'm in school to become a nurse practitioner, so I can hopefully provide more support next year when I graduate.
Okay, so we'll circle back next year.
Yeah.
And how can the audience find more information about you and learn more about working with you?
So, I own By Individual Health and Wellness. You can find me on all the social media channels, or at least most of them, and visit my website. I also do speaking engagements too. That's my new goal for this year because I feel like you could spread awareness through speaking through a lot of people because it is, sometimes people just want to do it on their own or they just need to hear something to kind of confirm. So I'm up for doing that. And that's it. You can always reach out to me and text me or call me. Like, I'm okay with talking about my own issues with you if you reach out to me. Like, you don't, it's not about like, I'm going to charge you, like, no. If you need the support, because I know what it's like to go through it, I want to be there for you too. So if you have any problems and, specifically about behavioral issues and eating and nutrition, definitely reach out to me.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I think this conversation really brought us a lot more clarity and compassion for families who are struggling. Um, and to everyone who is tuning in, who is listening to this video, remember that behaviors is not just communication, but it is also biology. And supporting a child means that we need to look at them as the whole child. We need to consider a lot of things, and nutrition is a big one. Um, and I will make sure that I link all of Vindeira's information under this video. It will be available on YouTube. And if this conversation resonates with you, please feel free to share it with a parent who needs hope. Um, Thanks so much again, Vindeira.
Thank
Until
you,
next
Ha.
time, bye.
Bye.
Don't go yet. Don't go.
I'm still here for you.
I'm